We're friends in a line. It's always so awkward. Happy Friday when you're waiting on like whatever. It's like, do you start talking? Do you wait? It's kind of awkward a little bit. Hey Micah, happy Friday. How's school going? How are you doing? Happy Friday. So like this for a sec. Just really wanted to. Sometimes I'll be like super quiet, and then I'll get these like go through these moments of like really wanting to. I'm doing good. That's so good. I'm doing really well right now. I'm doing really, really well right now. And that's also why I got on here. Because I think I'm the kind of person, when I'm going through something, I kind of just stay to myself a lot. And I've been that way since I can remember. Like when I go through something, sometimes it depends on who it is. Sometimes I'll talk about it, but for the most part, I kind of go off by myself and I deal with it so I can think through it. And I'm learning how to allow myself to feel. I've been doing that for like the last year or so. But usually I just kind of go off to myself so I can think and make sense of whatever it is that I'm going through. Because as I've said on here many times, there is something in everything. And it's easy to be content with those some things when things are going good. It's really easy to be content when things are going good and when things feel good. But the times that I've grown the most, like 2023 for me was a year. I came into 2023 and I moved. I actually was out of town when the year started. I was in Houston, and then when I got back, I moved. And it was, hey Elijah, happy Friday. I moved, and then shortly after, my car was stolen. Hey, happy Friday. And I had some like friendships and things that came to their end abruptly and unexpectedly. And so many other things where I felt like, for me, 2023 was a year of just being triggered nonstop and having a lot of anxiety. For the first time in a very long time, I was kind of in a space where I was like, I don't know if I'm okay. And I'm typically always the person that's like, I'm always okay. I could be going through whatever and I can still be okay. I can still function. And don't get me wrong, I was very much so still functioning, but I was really to that point where it was like, I have to isolate myself. Like I have to, for a number of reasons. One of which was, I had to isolate because I couldn't, it kind of felt like I was in a fight. Like 2023 for me felt like I was getting jumped. Okay. It felt like I was getting jumped and I had jabs coming from all different angles and sides, uppercuts. And I was like, I can't take another hit. I don't know if y'all have seen The Lion King. I don't remember if it was 1 or 2. But where it might be Simba or Mufasa, I don't know. But he like comes back to the pride and like, I think it was 2. It was 2. So that's Simba. He comes back to the pride and he's like, he's walking up like, he just got like ambushed and he's going to his pride. And it kind of felt like that. Like, I can't take another hit. I have to, and that's usually when I isolate. So that I didn't need any extra triggers. I didn't need any, like, because sometimes when you're going through something, if you're already in a space where you kind of feel beaten up, it's like, not that you look for people to beat you up more, but it's kind of like I know for myself, I'll speak for myself. Well, it's almost like, wait, was that person trying to beat me up? And not that I'm like super, like feeling like things are really sketchy, but I kind of just felt like, I gotta go off by myself. And that's what I did. And I told a few people that I cared about. Like one person, I had a conversation, I was just like, I don't want to project anything, and I need space to process. because I'm always that person. It's like before I respond, for the most part, especially the people I care about, and relationships I care about, it's like sometimes before I respond, I need a moment to kind of go off by myself, to think through it, to balance, to see like, okay, should I feel this way? Do I really feel that way, or am I projecting? Is that really the response that I want to have, or am I just in a weird space that's making me like extremely reactive? Because I don't like being reactive. I've been told that I was calculated before, and I think sometimes I can be. Like, it's like I don't want to just give somebody and project, my initial, where I think that can be healthy and really authentic. But I also think it kind of comes like with I don't want to say a responsibility, but there's just another end to that, because it's like, do you just say the first thing that comes to mind, or do you say, okay, let me think about this? Like, is that what I really want to, especially with the people you care about, like, is that really my intention? Is my intention to figure out a resolution, or am I just being reactive because I want to be heard and I'm operating out of a younger version of myself that wasn't heard or wasn't validated or protected or seen or what have you? But one person I told that, like, I'm processing and I just don't want to project. And so I just need a moment so I can process. Another person, I told them, like, this was some months ago, but I was really honest. And I felt like in July, August-ish, I really feel like, I told somebody before, like, I operate out of my knowing. And the things that we believe can shift. You learn new information, and something that you believed before can shift. The things that you know, there's no shaking that. And so I felt a knowing in my spirit that was like, Bria, it's time to, like, it's really time to, like, I felt like God was like, you need to be right here. Because I feel like the path that I was on was I was never going to be content with it. And it felt like it was like that crossroads. It's like, okay, if you continue doing these things, if you continue being this version of yourself, it may look good on the outside, but you're not going to be content with it. And so I just had to be really honest about that. And sometimes when you're trying to improve in certain areas, and that doesn't mean I'm getting an A+ in every area at all, and that it doesn't mean that other people didn't have A+ in some areas that I was maybe working towards, but I did feel like I really felt like some months ago, like God was like, no, now's the time. Start putting the work in, start taking a deeper look at yourself. Like I mentioned, 2023 was a year of a bunch of triggers. A bunch of things had come up. A bunch of things had been bubbling up to the surface, like the tail end of 2021, which I'm always learning something. It doesn't matter what phase of life I'm in. I feel like God is always revealing things to me, always giving me opportunities where I can learn and evolve and grow and cultivate more wisdom to apply for whatever life is bringing to me next. But yeah, it was 2020, the end of 2021, going into 2022, and 2023 was like just being triggered, and so many old traumatic things coming up to the surface, and so many, just a lot coming up to the surface, where 2023 like put a magnet, what is that called? Not a magnet, a magnifying glass over all of it, and was like, okay, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to just be depressed and stressed out all the time and anxious and all these things? Or are you going to look in the mirror and do what you need to do? And so one thing my dad always said, like, he didn't play. Accountability was so huge in my house growing up with my dad. And he would always say, like, say if we said we couldn't do something, oh, I didn't have time, or I didn't get a chance to, or I was going to, but, and he's like, he always would say, if you can think of a reason as to why you couldn't do something, then you can make up a reason as to why you could have. I don't want to hear he didn't play that, oh, just giving a bunch of excuses. Now, definitely life can happen, but my dad was very adamant about, happy Friday, my dad was very adamant about taking accountability and figuring things out. And so he also said, if you find yourself in the same types of situations, in different environments and around different people, you are the common denominator. And so I started to some months ago, like, pay attention. Like, I was saying, because I talk to myself. And I've always been the type of person to write and think through things and make sense of things and get to the root of things. So I think a heck of a lot. And then I have dreams that tell me a heck of a lot. And so I kind of was like, this keeps happening to me. Why does this keep, like, why is this always happening to me? And I started to listen to myself over time, like after saying it a few times, and I was like, I sound like a victim. And that is not my brand. The victimhood thing, that's just not, I didn't like it. And so I'm like, okay, what am I doing that's contributing to me having these cyclical experiences? And so in getting to the root of that, I had to recognize a few things. One of which, when we have like certain beliefs, like you hear people say, oh, it's always something, or it's one thing after another, or this always happens, or it's always me, or it's always, and it's like when you believe that, when you think that, when you walk through life with an expectation of if it ain't one thing, it's another, or, people, you can't trust people, or these things always happen. That is exactly what you're going to attract to yourself, because that's what you believe. And our minds are so powerful. That's why on my page it says utopia is in your mind. That's one thing that I'm learning to cultivate outside of an event of Bria's Utopia and having all this, tropical colors and flowers and beautiful and community and building and all that stuff is wonderful, but I had to really start working towards cultivating that from within. And I'm still working at that. And that'll probably always be something that, I'm cultivating for sure. But I wanted it to be more than just a tagline, And so it's like, okay, what is, number one, what's keeping me from that? And number two, what is my fixation with utopia being this specific way all the time? I'm big on peace. I'm big on, I took a bath last night and I had my rose petals in there and I had my music, and sometimes I watch Animal Planet type shows and everything, and it smells good, and it's, everything is so perfect, and I love a vibe. I love being comfortable in those ways. I love certain even just now when I get home, the first thing I do is wash my hands. I lit a candle or whatever, but it's like, why do I have this very specific expectation of what utopia is supposed to be at any given moment, and anything that maybe threatens that, then it's like, oh, nope, and then all of a sudden I'm out of utopia, and it's like, in paradise sometimes, there can still be natural disasters, there can still be whatever it is, and it's like, what is your energy going to be in the midst of all of those things? Because it's easy to be like, oh, Bree's Utopia and I love peace and all these things when everything is good, but it's like when things aren't the way that you would like, how are you going to show up? And so again, if we have I had a certain idea, and I just had to allow myself to surrender a little bit, not even a little bit, a heck of a lot. Okay. And so, I was realizing, okay, these things are constantly coming up. So what is it that I'm believing that is opening up the door and allowing these experiences and these people and these relationships and these dynamics and these things and these stories to constantly be replayed with different people and different environments? What is it that I'm doing? And it's not about being shamed. Like, sometimes I think accountability can have a really negative connotation, because it's like, you're doing this and you're not. And yes, to a certain degree, yes, true, cool. But at the same time, it's like, okay, allow me to have compassion for myself to figure out what survival tactics have I adapted over time that got me through certain things in my life, certain moments. I needed to have those things, but what survival tactics would I benefit from allowing to fully expire and to leave, in the past? Because I know I saw a post maybe today or yesterday that talked about perfectionism. and it's correlation to rejection. And I was like, oh man, that just really opened up my mind to so much more. Because since a little girl, I grew up never feeling good enough. The only space that I felt good enough was in school. Like I even now, I love to learn. I love learning new things. I really just really love to learn. I love reading. I love learning. I'll watch documentaries. I'll watch, even like I said, like last night I was watching this documentary, I guess. I don't know, animal show. What would you call it, a documentary? But I was watching about animals and learning about, what was the animal that it was? There was a few of them on this one, but I can't remember at the moment. But it was so interesting to me. And, darn, what animal was that? I can't recall, but I really like to learn. But anyhow, before I go off on another tangent, child. I loved school so much because I do like to learn. That was an arena that I felt like I could kind of be myself as far as like in the classroom and answering questions and learning things. Like that's a part of me that I felt like could really thrive. But once I was no longer in school, especially when I expected to be, I was so depressed. Because it's like the one area that I felt valued and validated, not valued, but validated and seen, and where I felt valuable to myself, I no longer had that. But that was one of the best things that ever happened to me and in my path thus far, because I was able to recognize and identify so many other things that were valuable. But like I mentioned, growing up, I just really didn't feel good enough in a bunch of different ways. And I felt like, I mean, for one, I was born when the sun was in Virgo. So that's one, you know. And a lot of people talk about like how Virgos have this thing with perfection. Really, that's because all 12 signs like rule certain parts of the body, like have a connection to certain parts of the body and explain. And Virgo rules like the digestive system. And so whatever you intake, what happens? It figures out the things that are healthy, that are going to be nourishing to the body, and then it gets rid of, you know, via excrement, what is not nourishing to the body. So it has to constantly analyze everything that's coming in. And so that's, you know, that job. And so there's always going to be a part of me, I'm sure, that like wants things to be a certain way and, you know, attention to detail and all those things and analytical and all. But when I read that post, I was like, wow. Sometimes you feel like, okay, if I'm perfect, I'll be accepted. Or if I'm not perfect, then the only other alternative is rejection. And when I thought about that, I really had to sit with that for a minute, because I'm like, oh, wow. So that's what it's been. You know, some of that is just my nature, but some of that are, you know, is things that I've learned and ways that I've survived in certain situations. And so I really had to sit with that. So I'm like, okay, when it comes to these cyclical experiences, it brought me back to that. Because I'm like, oh, I'm showing up in these ways because I think this, I believe this. So naturally, I'm going to draw in people and attract situations and attract dynamics and attract relationships and attract environments that are in harmony with my belief. And I feel like it's so easy. It's so easy to become a victim. It's so easy to point the finger at everybody else and say, oh, this person did this to me. And oh, they did, you know, they did that. And he did this. And it's just like, do people do some things? For sure. Absolutely. You know, people are going to be who they are. Just as I am, how I am, and who I am, because of the things that I've been through and the life that I lived and all that kind of good stuff. And I've hurt people, you know, I've done some things that aren't cool before, unintentionally, most of the time. You know, I've shown up in ways that may have been detrimental to somebody else, even if that was not my intention. Just because you have an intention, like now everybody talks about intentions, which is beautiful, but you can, just because your intention is to be loving or supportive or what have you, doesn't mean that it's being received that way, doesn't mean that it translates that way. And so, and I don't want to use the word accountability, but just self-reflection and self-inventory is so important to me. And for me personally, I need time to myself. I need time to not talk to anybody, to have blinders on so that I can focus. So it's like, okay, why is this happening? What do I do with this? What is in this situation for me to learn so that I can proceed forward and apply the wisdom from this situation to whatever is next? Because if not, you're going to keep going through. And sometimes you can learn the wisdom to apply and then you still go through something else. Happy Friday. It's like you still go through something else because you have yet to learn, And one thing about life, it's almost like, at least for me, it's like it'll be, you might find yourself like going through this, something similar. And hopefully it's a spiral where it's going up, and not just like where you're just going around and around and around. But hopefully on the way, it's like, oh, I saw that before. As you're going up through the same whatevers, it's like, oh, I saw that before. I know to look for that now, But I always say, even if you feel like you're going through a revolving door, hopefully something in that one will be a little bit different so that you can learn. And even if it's hurt, sometimes this person hurt me, or this person had me effed up, or this person did this to me, and I can't believe they did that to me. Our ego takes over, and it's like some of the situations and people that have hurt me the most to the core have been such a blessing. And that's why I don't villainize people. That's why, I'm not just always pointing the finger like, you did this to me and I can't believe you and blah, 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 because it's like, thank you. Thank you for honoring me. Sometimes people will hurt you, but it's really honoring you because it's like, man, I was hurt by that, but I was able to, it exposed a version of myself or a pattern that I had, that I was contributing to that I had no idea about, 2022 and 2023, I was hurt by some people that I really didn't expect. I really, really didn't. But then when I look back, I won't even say that because I'm BSing myself. I won't even say that I didn't expect because I saw how some of those people were moving with other people and throughout their life and even to themselves beforehand. And I was just like, but that wouldn't happen to me. That's ego again. Oh, they doing them like that. Like, oh, that's over there. That's not me. And it's like, Brie, you were being naive in that. And so it's like, again, I allowed that. Something happens and you allow it to continue, or you don't say anything. I'd reached out to someone and just mentioned something about self-sabotage. Like, we self-sabotage sometimes. You might see a red flag. You might see a person, just say you go on a date with a person and, you're walking into a restaurant or something and there's a mother coming out with a stroller and a diaper bag and all this stuff. And then you see the person just walk through the door as the mother is about to walk out and has to like open the door, and they don't even try to open the door. You saw that. You saw that. Like, you trying to play like you didn't see it. You saw that. But you were just like, you just brushed it off in the moment. And then down the line, you got your heart broke or your feelings hurt. And it's like, I can't believe this person did this to me. You saw how they moved beforehand. And you didn't take heed to it. And I'm not saying, okay, cut somebody off as soon as they make a mistake or they do something that you don't like. But sometimes things, it'll be small things that give you a front row seat to how a person's character is set up. And, you can't blame them, you really can't blame them. Nobody is perfect. Everybody is still figuring it out the best way. Like, we're all figuring out the best way we can. We've all been through trauma, especially now when things like therapy and self-love and trauma and all these things are buzzing all over the place. We all realize, oh wow, I didn't even realize that was traumatic. And it was. Oh my gosh. I've been navigating with, but I had to realize that, like, I was self-sabotaging myself. Well, obviously it's myself because it's called self-sabotage. But I was self-sabotaging in a lot of ways and I didn't even realize. And that's something that I had to pay attention to. And that's something that isolating myself gifted me. Sometimes even on here for a while, I was putting up posts like, I don't want to talk. I just don't. When I'm dealing with a lot of stuff, I get really to myself. And I was really adamant about, I need space to get through all of these things. Back in July, end of July, early August, I went to Miami and I went to the Forbidden Knowledge Conscious Awards, and I was so excited about that, especially because I'm like, I wanted to meet somebody who I consider a master teacher thus far on my journey, was Dr. B. Serious. And I listened to a lot of I tune into his workshops and his lectures and different things and his content, just because I don't even want to call it content, because that makes it just feels so sterile to say content, but a lot of the messages that he shares for many reasons. But I was like, I want to meet him and all this. So before I went to Miami, I did a 4-day fast, and the most I've ever done is 5 days with no food at all. I just do like water and coconut water, and I limit the coconut water. It's mainly like if I just need some energy, because it has electrolytes like Gatorade, but it doesn't have all the extra sugar and everything, unnatural sugars and stuff. And so the most, like I said, I've ever done is 5 days. And during that time, I did that 2022. I had just, like a little bit before, I had just went through something that I was so devastated about. And I really was like, man, I really need clarity. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually, energetically, physically. And I felt like I just kept hitting a wall and I couldn't move beyond that. And so when I get in that space, I know it's time for me to fast, something more than just like my norm. And so before I went to Miami last year, I fasted for 4 days. And because I did want to be able to enjoy myself while I was down there. But I fasted for 4 days, and I did meet Dr. B. Serious, which I was so excited about. And but around that time, I was really feeling like God was like, now is the time. Like, now is the time. And that meant that certain things I kind of had to sacrifice, and I was so okay with that, because I had this knowing in my spirit that now was the time, and I felt very clear about that. And so I wasn't letting anything come in the way of that. But anyhow, I fasted then, and I did feel a lot of clarity, and so many things happened that were so just beautiful and just felt really magical at that time. But I've been, that feeling of like being like, okay, now is the time, has only been magnified since then. And like I mentioned, I went through a lot of hurt, but it was so good for me, and I'm so grateful, and I really look at it as a gift. And so if anybody has been in my life that maybe is not in my life any longer, I'm not that person to wish anybody ill will. I'm not that person like, you ain't gonna have a person like me, you ain't gonna find another me, or you're not gonna find, I mean, nobody's gonna find another somebody. I think that's such BS when people say, you ain't gonna find another me. Of course, happy Friday. Like, the whole point of exist, like, everybody is a different person, everybody is an individual, and of course you're never gonna find somebody else like that person. Not entirely, but I'm not the person to wish anybody ill, because my grandma always said that, like, people come in your life for a reason or a season. And I feel like if you fulfilling your purpose and whatever it is that you were put here to do does not include me, maybe we were only supposed to walk, this far, and now it's beneficial for the both of us, or even just for you to walk in your own direction, and I can't be a part of that. I might be devastated, I might be hurt, I might be let down, I might be disappointed, and all of that is okay, because I will get beyond it. But I just feel like if you're in my life and I care about you, my main goal as a person in your life is for you to be your best self. And if that includes me the whole way, and that is mutually beneficial, great. If that includes me only for a certain part and juncture, that's okay too. And I'm not mad, and I don't wish anybody bad. And I'm not like, oh, I honestly, I genuinely don't feel like that. Even there was a guy, and I sent him a message and was like, you said that you wanted to find your wife, that you were looking for your wife or something like that. And I genuinely hope that you find her. And some other things I said. And I feel like maybe that person took it like I was trying to be condescending. I really, really wasn't. I was really being honest. And I waited until I sent that message, until I actually felt like that. Happy Friday. Until I actually felt like that. Because I'm like, I wouldn't say it if I wasn't genuine. I say what I mean, and I mean what I say. And so, I honestly feel like that. Sometimes our ego is like, oh, they ain't gonna find another me. Or, your life is gonna fall apart without me. Or all this other BS. And it's like, no. There was somebody in my life for years. And once me and that person were no longer, in each other's space, I saw them thriving. And that doesn't necessarily mean I was holding them back or they were holding me back. And I started to thrive on my path. It doesn't mean that we were holding each other back. It just means that we cross paths for a very specific reason. And that reason has now fulfilled its purpose. You know, I learned what I needed to learn from you, and you learned what you needed to learn from me. And it doesn't always have to be a bad thing. It doesn't have to be like, oh, you know, we mess each other over, or, you know, it has to be explosive, or it has to be drama, or it has to be, hey, happy Friday. I just saw a video of you the other day. Ronald sent me. But it doesn't always have to be a bad thing. It's just like, okay, we learned what we needed to learn, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be negativity. It doesn't have to be anything. Happy Friday. It's just like, all right, we met, you know, we got to where we needed to go, and I thank you. Even if somebody has, you know, been hurtful or disappointed or whatever, it's okay. Because again, some of the best lessons I've learned have come out of a lot of hurt and a lot of just disappointment and all those things, because then it allowed me to get into a space where I'm like, okay, why is this? Like, I kind of look at life as like a movie screen. So it's like, okay, why is that playing on my screen right now? Why is this the story that's coming up for me right now? Why am I attracting these people, these environments, these situations to me? Because you're allowing it. I was allowing certain things. And that doesn't mean somebody punches you in the face and it's like, okay, do it again. But it's also like, if I have a belief about whatever it may be, then naturally, subconsciously, I'm going to pull these things in that validate that belief. And so I had to check in with myself and be honest with myself about those things that I was getting in my own way. And it's okay to, you know, it's not always everybody else. You know, it's easy to make people the villain. It's easy to play the victim, like, oh, they did this to me. No, what I believed did that to me. You know, you have to match. People talk about vibration and frequency a lot now and don't really understand it all the way. But it's like, if that's the energy that you're emitting, if that's the frequency that you're vibrating on, then all things and people and situations and environments and everything that match that will show up on your movie screen. You're going to pull in characters that fit the description of exactly what it is that you believe or think or that you're focused on. And so I was realizing that, and I had to be honest about that. And it's okay. You know, we've all done things, said things, been certain versions of ourselves. Happy Friday. And if anybody would like to come on, you're more than welcome. But yeah, and so I called this rant Path to Love, because another thing that I'm learning outside of perfectionism and rejection and those two things being connected is that in 2014, I learned that I really didn't love myself, and I had no clue, because I thought, like, if you just didn't accept BS, like riffraff from all over the place, and if you dress nice and, you know, all those things, I thought that meant you loved yourself. And I realized, oh, wow, I don't. And then I started to unravel that and figure out, okay, I don't have boundaries. I'm overextending myself. I have a lot of codependent relationships. Why do I have these codependent relationships? Because I'm not comfortable with receiving like the love and support and all those things, and connectedness that I desire. I don't feel worthy of those things. I don't feel good enough all the way for those things. And so I just had to come to those realizations. But so I had a lot of codependent relationships. That was comfortable for me. I didn't know how to have relationships where people showed up for me wholly in the way that I needed to. And the ones that did, I kind of kept them at arm's length, because I honestly didn't know how to have healthy relationships for some time. And I didn't realize I didn't know how to have healthy relationships for some time until I took a step back and looked at everything and was like, oh, that's what I'm doing. Communication, had no clue of how to do. I've always been very articulate, but I had no idea how to communicate, especially when it came to vulnerable feelings. I had no clue of how to do any of those things. Knowing yourself is growing. I absolutely agree. And I feel like the more that you know yourself, the more that you love yourself. And it's not just taking spiritual baths and like knowing stuff about your birth chart. Like all that stuff is great. But it's like really, really knowing yourself. The more that you learn to love yourself, like loving yourself, like the parts of yourself that aren't comfortable. Because I was only comfortable showing up in a very certain particular strategic way. And when I found myself in spaces in life where I didn't know how to show up in those ways, I didn't love on myself, and it showed. I've said before, I don't like, some people can be overweight and still look good. I don't feel like I'm one of those people just because of how my body is structured. It doesn't suit me well. And so at times, like when I would be really, really stressed out and really going through stuff, I never, not ever once been stressed where I couldn't eat. I've never been that way. Baby, pass me the plate. What we eating? What we having for today? I've never been that person. And so I was overindulging and doing things, trying to get this feeling that I was missing, that I was like, not willing to cultivate for myself, and just trying to hurry up and get something quick, like a quick fix, like baby, hot tamales, a theater box. Give me a good, maybe 5 minutes. Okay. It's done. It's over. It's consumed. And so, yeah, learning to love those parts about myself that me too and I don't. You might as well come on here. You got stuff to say. Me too and I don't want to look like a balloon. Exactly. I don't look, being overweight does not look good on me. I'm that person that's like, if I ask, does this look good on me or do I look fat in this? Honey, I'm looking for the truth, because I already know the answer, so I don't even want to be asking. But yeah, it doesn't look great on me, and I have to be honest with myself. So it's like, even learning to love yourself in terms of like, if I know personally, like I have a rise routine, and I'm still working on it. But as of right now, the first thing I do when I wake up, when I open my eyes, okay. But the first thing I do when I open my eyes is say thank you. And then I go in a different room and I sit and I meditate and I say I'm listening. Well, I say I'm listening first, and then I meditate and I just allow myself to receive, and then just kind of direction and guidance. And to be completely honest, sometimes I feel like I don't hear anything and get anything. And then one thing, I was watching, who was it? Michael Beckwith. And he was saying, it was a podcast that he did with this guy. I can't remember his name, but it's this dark-skinned black guy, Shaman something. I think his name starts with a D or something like that. And he was saying, he said something about, like, Michael Beckwith said something. I believe that's what I was watching that I got this from. But he was saying that, like, he has this, and I've had this same rise routine for a while, but I just saw this podcast episode, like, maybe 2 weeks ago or so. And he said that something to the extent, don't quote me, but it was something like allowing yourself, like I allow myself to or something about participating in the miracles. And I'm like, one thing I learned from Dr. Be Serious is saying, like, I allow, because sometimes when we say I am, our ego jumps in. Like, say if it's like, if you think you look butt ugly, or you gained a bunch of weight, you don't feel beautiful, or whatever it is, then you could be like, oh, I am beautiful. But your ego was like, nah, girl, you know you don't feel whatever. Then it's like, it kind of cancels it out. But when you say I allow, you surrender and you move out of the way and you let the divine, do what it's going to do. And so, yeah, it's like I say I allow myself to participate in miracles on my behalf and on the behalf of others now. And in doing that, it's just setting that intention for the day. And so, as a matter of fact, just the other day, I went to get a car wash. And the guy that was drying my car off, he asked me, he was like, what is this? What is that? And I was like, oh, it's called a bindi. I said, it's mainly worn like in Indian culture or whatever, but I wear it. First, like maybe the last 2 years, I started wearing them or something around there. And just about daily. And I thought it was cute, first of all. And that was the main reason. And then I was like, oh, it highlights your third eye area. And then my little cousin, who's been to Dubai and Spain and different places, and she asked me what it is. She's really interested in different cultures and things. Such a cool little girl, but cutie patootie. But she asked me what it was and what it meant. And so that made me look it up. And I learned that it was called a bindi, and a lot of women wear it sometimes when they get married, but also it's like they say these sacred prayers in the morning, and you can't see your own unless you're on live or taking a selfie, but you can't see your own. But when you see that of someone else, it reminds you of your own sacred prayers. And so because, a part of my rise routine is to get up, to be grateful, to say thank you, to meditate, and to put certain intentions out before I go out in the day, before I start exchanging energy with anybody, anything, any place, I do that so that that doesn't always mean that I stay grounded all day, but that does set the intention and allow, for my day to take shape before anything else starts to shape my day for me. And so even my phone, like at night, I turn my phone on airplane mode. I unplug my router. As a matter of fact, I just got home not long ago and my router is still unplugged for Wi-Fi. So I'm going to plug that in and after I get off of here. But before I turn on my phone, look at my phone and all those things, I do that. So I'm not putting anything else in before, I set those intentions. But anyhow, getting back to what I was saying before, because baby, I will go on a rant, is that learning to love parts of myself that don't look as polished as I would like, that don't seem as perfect, that don't exactly fit the idea of Bria in my own head. There's times that some guys have told me that they like me before, and I told them, you don't like me. You like who I think you think I am. You only think that you like me because I can sense when somebody has like certain check marks, like, oh, I want a woman that's like this or whatever. And you could very well have pure intentions, righteous whatevers, and all this kind of stuff. But it's like, sometimes we have checklists. And I can sense it because I've been that way. Like, oh, he looks like this. Or, oh, he's intelligent. Or, oh, he dresses whatever. Or, oh, he's... And it's like, all that stuff can be important for sure. And is important to a certain extent. Absolutely not negating that whatsoever. But it's like, you don't even see me. And so I'm learning how to love the parts of myself that... in the past, I didn't really want to be seen. And that's not always easy. Because especially, like, say if you grew up in a house and somebody was always telling you to be quiet, then maybe you felt like you talked too much and whatever. And then you go out into the world and you're carrying that with you. And then when you talk too much, you feel like, oh, I don't want to talk too much because I don't want this person to feel this way about me or what have you. Or maybe if I talk too much, that person won't accept me, or they'll reject me, or they won't love me, or they won't have space for me, or whatever, you go off on. And it's like, no, you got to learn to love that too. Because you can only know other people and have, relationships with the depth that you first allow for yourself. And that's something that I'm learning right now. And I'm really proud of that because, honey, it is not easy all the time. Like life... this was, what's his name? What is his name? It's a singer. Chicago Kid. BJ the Chicago Kid. I heard a clip of something. I don't know if this was an interview. I imagine it was an interview he was on. And hey, happy Friday. But he said, life isn't that easy. Don't quote me. But it was like, life isn't that easy, but it's also not that hard. And sometimes we make it way more difficult than it has to be. I have made parts of my life and versions of myself and how I've shown up in life way more difficult sometimes they have to be, because sometimes it's just not that serious. And yeah, I'm learning some of those things. I was listening to something earlier, and Kevin Gates, whom I love, my friend was like, when I told her I was going to the Kevin Gates concert back in October, she was like, Kevin Gates? She was like, I'm judging you a little bit. And I get it, especially because sometimes like people will take clips of what he said for clickbait and just completely throw it out of context. And it's like, some of the things he says, I don't necessarily support or agree with or, whatever. But I really respect him. Like, his journey so far, how disciplined he is with himself, how accountable he holds himself, how spiritual he is, and how, like, he's helped a lot of people. But he was talking about, like, just at one point being suicidal and having suicidal ideation and things like that, and just about the things that he had been through. And that's another thing that I connect with, because 3 times in my life, twice in my adult life, I felt that way. When I was like maybe 5th or 6th grade, I hung a noose in my room, and I didn't think about the mechanics of my bed at the time, because I had like a canopy bed and I didn't realize that it wasn't going to be able to hold that weight. And yeah, I felt that way just because I felt like life was so heavy and I was so sad. And I remember talking to God, like, I don't think feeling this way, like, I feel miserable every day, and I don't think that's normal. Again, like I said earlier, when I was no longer in school in college, unexpectedly, and well, I guess if you know the grades you get, it's kind of expected, but I was going through some things that led to that, and I felt like, I just felt worthless. Like, dang, the one avenue that I felt validated, I no longer have. So what am I doing? And then finally, this was maybe like 2018, 2019, I think, when I went to Atlanta. That was my first time like going out of town by myself, and I've done it a few times. My parents are used to it, but I was going to Atlanta, and my dad doesn't like Uber, he doesn't like Airbnb, none of those things. And so that was my first time, like I said, going out of town by myself. And was it? Yeah, because I went to New York after that. But he was like, I was going to stay in an Airbnb, and he was like, not liking that idea at all. And he's like, I would just be more comfortable if you stayed with family, blah, 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 because I have family down there, which I ended up staying with one of my cousins. And so when I was down there, my cousin had this younger guy that was like a friend of a friend, kind of a friend's son, take me around. And so I hadn't really been enjoying myself, really. I did a little bit, but not to the extent that I wanted to. And we went to like this mansion party. And I wasn't even trying to go to a party. Like, I forget where we were supposed to go. He took me where I wanted to go. But then him and his friend, like, we ended up going to this party, a friend that they knew or something. And it was a beautiful mansion. And so at the top, it had a rooftop. Beautiful. And it overlooked, like, the freeway and everything. And the mansion was gorgeous. There was a bunch of people there and everything. And I was just really not enjoying myself. And I'm just like, I just started having all these thoughts. And I just felt so just opposite of what I was expecting. And I just was thinking about so many things, and I'm on top of this roof. Like, I was really thinking about just jumping off. And I for people that know me, I say things like happy Monday and blah, blah, blah. And that doesn't mean that I'm having the perfect day every day. But I do say those things. For one, in working in schools and so long, everybody says like they would look for Friday, like happy Friday, because I finally get a break and all. Happy Friday. But I finally get a break and all. And then they would say like, you know, what they call it, Thursday, pre-Friday or whatever it was. And then Wednesday is like hump day, because everybody's can't wait to get to the weekend to finally be away and all these things. And so I just started some years ago saying, oh, happy Monday, whatever, because I recognize that there is a miracle. The possibility of a miracle is in every day, in every moment. But sometimes people, you know, I am a very positive person. I am a very naturally optimistic person. I am a very the cup is half full type of person. Even today, somebody was talking about the weather, like, oh, the snow and the rain. We would, you know, wish something about that. And I just told him, like, well, I appreciate, you know, the rain. He was like, we just got over the snow. Now we got rain. I was like, well, I appreciate the rain because it melted a lot of this snow. We're not dealing with all this snow. And I'm grateful that it's a little bit warmer, even though it's probably global warming or something. But I'm like, I'm grateful because it's not frozen. Like, you know, a few days ago it was raining and it was freezing. And I said, so it makes it easy to drive, you know. And so he was like, well, yeah. And so I'm just naturally that person. I really appreciate positivity. I really appreciate kindness, you know. But just genuinely, I just really, really do, especially with my parents, like growing up with my parents, kindness and thoughtfulness and being of service and things like that is the norm for me, at least how I grew up. So I appreciate those things. But, you know, I have my moments, you know, at times I'm not always just smiling and happy and I'm, you know, and some people have thought that. But especially like when I've taken those moments to just isolate, there have been people who have, you know, vocalized to me how they feel about that, or they were upset about that or what have you. But it's like, sometimes I need that because I was like, I have to be able to focus, you know, and so that when I am around and things, that's how I felt before. Like when I am around, I can be of service and I can share more positivity and things. Like I'm not that person. If you're complaining all the time, if it's always something, if it's Happy Friday. Oh, is it it's just like, dang. Like you always mad. You always got something going. It's always something bad. It's always some negativity. You know? I don't really have the capacity at this juncture to be around that, because it's like, dang, can we do something else? Is there anything that you're grateful for? You know, if every conversation you're venting, every conversation is something bad that happened, or it's always something. Well, if you think it's always something, it's always going to be something, because that's what you think, so that's what you're going to attract. You're going to validate exactly what you say. Life and death do lie in the power of the tongue. So what you say, what you're focused on, what your energy is constantly funneling towards, it's just like right now, if I had 3 cups in front of me, and I'm only putting liquid into this cup. Guess what? These other two are going to be empty because I'm not putting anything there. What I'm fueling is what's going to overflow and fill up and all that. Whew. But anyhow, that's coming out. But yeah, I am learning to love certain parts of myself that are not always easy, you know? I tell the kids I work with, I'm like, I get on my own nerves sometimes, so I know I'm gonna get on y'all nerves. Just like how y'all gonna get on my nerves. There's still love there. I still love you. I just might need a second. One student, she said she was so rude to me for no reason. One day, I went into class and was like subbing for a few minutes while the teacher came in and was coming back, and she was so rude. She tried to sit next to me without her shoes on and was like, my feet don't stink. I don't even want to know if they do. Like, just a little bit of distance. You don't need to be right next to me, right there. And she went off on me. And I said, I still need you to move. Like, the attitude is not going to change what I said. And so she went off. So then maybe like the next day or two, we're in this room and she comes up and tries to hug me. And I'm like, we need to have a conversation. Because she cut into me. I was like, we need to have a conversation first. And so she was like, what? I said, do you remember our last encounter? And so she said, well, I'm sorry. You're not sorry. First of all, I don't even like when people say I'm sorry, because to me that sounds like I'm a sorry person. That's my mom. She was like, you're not sorry. It's I apologize. But then too, I'm not the type of person that needs an apology. I don't care about an apology. I appreciate when somebody acknowledges whatever was done, number one, and number two, changes the behavior. That's an apology to me. Saying the words I apologize, that means nothing to me, because you can apologize and do the exact same thing the next day. But we did have a conversation after. But yeah, I'm like, y'all are gonna get on my nerves, and I know I'm gonna get on your nerves, because I get on my own nerves sometimes. Just like I feel like I'm getting on my nerves a little bit right now, because I feel like I've been talking way longer than I was expecting. But these things wanted to be shared, and so here I am. And so I said all of this to say, long story, very long. Long story, long. All of this was said because I really hope that whatever space that you're in, whatever is showing up on your movie screen of life, whatever characters and scenarios and whatever that you have attracted, that I just hope you recognize that there's a choice in it. May you recognize that there's a choice in it, and recognizing that often comes with just self-reflection, taking self-inventory. And I don't necessarily want to use the word holding yourself accountable, because sometimes it can be a little harsh, and sometimes people have an issue with taking accountability. And maybe I'm just trying to make that palatable, not saying the word accountability so that people don't take it that way. But sometimes you just got to realize, okay, what beliefs, patterns, and habits are contributing to these cyclical patterns, What part am I playing in that? Why? When did I start doing that? Why did I start believing that? What has happened that convinced me that this is the truth? That this is all that I can have? That this is all that I can be? That this is what I have to expect? What is it? Why do I think, it's always something? Is that something that I heard in a narrative that I then adopted because that's what was familiar and around me? And, yeah, I've been releasing a lot lately. And physically and energetically, I've been releasing a lot. And it feels really, really good. And I think it's easy to want other people to love us and to show up for us and to be a friend to us, or, our significant other, or our, our job, or whatever it is. It's really easy to hold people and external beings to a standard that we don't even hold for ourselves. And right now, in the last stretch of a season for me, that's been over a long period of time, I'm in a space, and have been in a space, where I'm cultivating and pouring into that standard for myself. Because I think it's unfair to be like, why don't you love me this way, or you're not showing up for me, or you're not supporting me, or you're not you, y'all. Life. And it's like, but how are you doing that for yourself? I know for me personally, when I fast, 2020 I started fasting, which I've talked on here before, where I was born on a Thursday, and so I would fast from Wednesday sunset to Friday sunrise every week. I got to a point where I was doing it every week, and then I got to a point where I would do a fruit fast on Wednesdays that would lead me into the fast on Thursdays. At the time, my Thursday fast would just consist of water, juice, and when I say juice, I mean like no sugar added, no concentrates, no nothing, just like straight juice and tea. I moved on to like when I full fast. My version of a full fast is water and coconut water still. That's the most I've ever done. When I mentioned that 5-day fast that I did in 2022. Right now I'm on a fast. It's a fruit and veggie fast for 7 days. And just the clarity that I've been getting. Just even seeing, like, sometimes you realize, like, your reactions, even if it's an internal reaction, like, sometimes, for me, I might have an internal reaction, or it might feel like a war on the inside, but I don't allow it to, to bleed into the outside. But even some of my internal reactions have been lessening to certain things and environments and people where I haven't been shaken in the same ways that I was before. And I'm really grateful for that. And I'm also thinking about doing another fast right after this one is over, like a full fast, just because when I'm not consuming, hey, happy Friday. I'm about to end this in a second. But it's like when I'm not consuming, when I'm fasting, it's like it's a whole different level of clarity. It's a whole, in an interview that Kevin Gates just did, he said, we talk in church about, like, I learned about your body being your temple. And it's like when I'm fasting, like especially a full fast, it really, really feels like that. When I just feel empty, I really feel like, God is able to pour in a way that's just really, really special and really different than any other type of fast for me. I get really very clear, and I feel like God is really able to abide in that way. And before I learned about it a little bit before, but I learned about like new moon and full moon fasting some years before from like Asa and Solar Powered Sundays when he did those. But out in church growing up, they would talk about fasting just from the Bible, but we never did, like my mom's church right now, they're doing I think they call it a corporate fast, which I don't know why they call it corporate, but maybe I just don't know why. I didn't even ask her to think about it. But they do that fast and everything. But my church that I grew up in, we didn't do any fasts. Not collectively, like people may have done them, but that's just not something that I heard about really growing up. But in learning about those things, it really, really helps. It really, really, for me personally, and I've talked to other people that have done it too, it just really allows me to get clear. It allows me to release. It does help you lose weight. But what I realized over time is not just physical weight. It could be mental weight, emotional weight, energetic, spiritual weight. Like sometimes we're just weighed down by life. And fasting kind of helps to alleviate a lot of that weight. Allows you to, release yourself of certain baggage and how sometimes we can just feel like we're in bondage. We're, a certain person, a certain situation, a certain soul tie, a certain whatever, energy. These cyclical patterns, sometimes it feels like it has a hold on us. And so I've been on here way longer than I imagined and that I thought I was going to be. But like I said, those things wanted to come up and out. And like I used to say, I won't say that, but may all be well with you and your loved ones. And may you love yourself in a radical way. Beyond maybe the limitations and not even limitations, but the capacity that other people have had to show up for you and love on you. May you love yourself in a way that just renews your faith and love, and not just, relationship love and all those things, but just love of self and our worthiness and our value, that allows for just the most abundant, beautiful 90s type of love. And so that was really all. Happy Friday. Happy Friday.